What if the most effective ways to reach people in a culture wasn't some flashy event or a giveaway or even a coffee meeting, but rather a profitable business? We're going to look at what are the key distinctions of a business as mission company and some of the commonly misheld or misunderstood ideas of what business as mission really is. And then we're going to look at what sector actually has the highest impact, and it might surprise you. By the end of this video, you'll be able to recognize great impact BAM opportunities and highest leverage opportunities for which kinds of jobs a business's mission can create. So with that, let's dive in. So business's mission, to set the stage, are profitable businesses that intentionally reveal the kingdom of God to bless a community across 4 bottom lines: economic, environmental, social, and spiritual. And when you think about how a business's mission can fulfill what God has asked us to do in the Bible, I love what my friends at BAM Global have said when they look at the 3 mandates, starting with Genesis 2, the creation mandate. God says, be fruitful, fill the earth, multiply, work the ground, right? The second commandment was to love God and love people, right? That is our next the great commandment. And we can do that really well in the marketplace. We spend half of our waking hours there in the marketplace. Why not love God and love people? And finally, the Great Commission. God said to go into all the nations and make himself known, make his message known to all the people. And what better way to do that than in the marketplace where all the people are? Go figure, right? Maybe we go and hang out with them and put those things on display. That's a good example of how the business's mission model can actually fulfill 3 biblical mandates that you might not first realize. Now, I have to hit on this key distinctive of business as mission companies because I live in Seattle, and there's lots of people that would say, oh, I've got this business as mission company. And I'm like, oh yeah, where is it? First question I ask, where is it? Oh yeah, it's in downtown Seattle, and who are you helping? And I'm like listening for, who are they helping? And they're saying, well, we're just trying to transform the tech industry. This is exactly what I was doing in my company, right? Tech company, downtown Seattle. It was not a business as mission. And I'm like, okay, cool. Well, we need lots of redemption in the tech industry in Seattle, full stop. 100% agree with you. I would say your business, if it's not serving marginalized and vulnerable people, or where there are 3 billion people that have almost zero chance of meeting a Christian or finding a church, right? If you're in a more reached area of the world with plenty of resources, it's a great business. Let's call it what it is. It's a redemptive kingdom business. That's a good description for it. It's not a business's mission unless you are serving marginalized, vulnerable people, or you're in a part of the world that's greatly underserved from the kingdom of God. That's what I would classify as a business's mission. If you're joining a different kind of business, like I said, we love it. We love redemptive kingdom businesses. I've got a bunch of other videos on that topic. Here's one of them right there, my most popular one. But on this video, I'm going to keep unpacking what is a business as mission and what are the levels and types of companies that can participate. Now, there are 3 kinds of businesses I want to show you real quick. The micro business model, which are there to create income, usually for one person, maybe a small family. There are small to medium enterprises, which are usually creating jobs for lots of people. And then there are large businesses, usually 250 employees and greater, and obviously they create even more jobs and more impact and have a lot of outsized impact on society, right? So micro business, small, medium, large. And in this video, what I want to focus on in the business's mission context is, well, we see some of the highest leverage businesses to be able to have more relationships with people and serve and bless more people. You can't just jump right to the large business. And micro businesses are powerful for getting people out of poverty. I love it. I'm a huge fan of some of those organizations, Hope International, right? There's tons of them. But I'm really focusing on the small to medium enterprise sector, where this is where a lot of the jobs, some studies say as many as 70% of the jobs in frontier and emerging markets are found at small and medium enterprises. Now, as we define business as mission, I need to also say what this is not. It is not business for donation, right? I'm all for companies being generous, or the founder of a company being generous and, maybe going on a serve project or making a donation to a nonprofit. That's cool. But business as mission is when you view the work of the business as the way that you're bringing transformation. How you work with your employees, how you work with your customers, how you work with suppliers, your community. That's business as mission, right? It's not business for mission. Also, we're not talking about business for visa or to access some sort of country, right? Just because you want to be in that country and not run a business. Like, please, if that's you, then don't go to that country, right? Go to a country that'll let you walk in the front door and do the things that you want to do. But in the countries where I'm talking about, we want to build businesses that are going to create economic value for the culture, for the people. The government and the society would say, we want this business here. I was at a country in Central Asia, and I was at the table of the second in command of this whole country, a 20 million person country. And there across the table, I asked this man who is basically the chief, he was the deputy chief of all of foreign direct investment. And I looked him in the eye and said, what kind of businesses do you want in your country? And he goes, we want businesses that can produce things. We want businesses that are made with our own people's sweat and blood so we can sell them to Europe. Of course, he's thinking like economically, I just want to make more money. Of course, which company or which country doesn't want to make more money? So in this conversation, I said, great, because the company is sitting right next to me. They're here and they have a production business and they're building products that we are selling to our own people here in this country. And that's why we're investing in this business. So you can have a conversation at a really, really high level when you're leaning in at creating products and services that country actually wants, not just what you came up with in your prayer closet or what you came up with ChatGPT. Right? There are way more strategic ways to be about business as mission. Now, before you think about going out there and trying to build this business as mission, I want to bring you to Luke 14 because there's a warning for us there. So check this out with me. As you see in Luke 14, it says here, for which of you wanting to build a tower doesn't first sit down and calculate the cost to see if he has enough to complete it? Otherwise, if he has laid the foundation and cannot finish it, onlookers will begin to ridicule him, saying, this man started to build and wasn't able to finish. Now imagine if I had that conversation with the diplomat there in that country and I said, oh yeah, we're going to build this great business. And I go out there and I lay the foundation and we run out of money. Or I go out there and I say, hey, we're going to go and build this product or service and then we fall flat. How do you think that represents our King and the excellence that he has? How do you think that demonstrates and tells the community our commitment to the seriousness of what we're doing, right? So we need to be careful about building without counting the cost, without thinking about all the wisdom and excellence we can surround ourselves with, because it's hard enough to run a business. So it's so important that we get surrounded by wise advisors, people locally who know that business context, people maybe even internationally that have domain experience that is going to help us succeed, so that we don't build, like you see here, build a tower that we're not able to finish. So please build a business that you have confidence that God will provide and supply your needs. And you have advisors, like Proverbs 15:22 says, a council of many advisors, plans will succeed. Find those advisors so you can succeed. One more concept I want to share is this concept of business as transformation. Now, pause for a sec. We've been talking about business as mission, right? And we know what the word mission is. It's people that are motivated by a cause, right? They feel like an emotional connection to a mission. That's great. As Christians, we have several different missions that God has called us to. And so then when we think about transformation, this is a word that is more focused on the people we're trying to serve. We want to have a business that creates transformation. And there's whole groups and networks of people, even a conference called the Business for Transformation Expo that happens in the United States every year. And Business for Transformation is really emphasizing making money and making disciples of Jesus, seeing the spiritual transformation happen. But let me tell you this, there's social impact that comes out of that. There is products and services and economic benefit and material benefit and taxpayer money that is paid in from these businesses. And so when you're thinking about transforming a community, you want to do it with the intention of, I'm doing this in service to transform the community, but you can't figure out what needs transforming until you're on the ground, till you spend some time on the ground talking to people, interviewing entrepreneurs, interviewing potential customers, talking with the government, looking at the ecosystem that does or doesn't exist. This is how we can imagine business as mission in a transformative impact, which I like to call business for transformation. So how do you engage in business as mission or business for transformation? There's not just one role to play. I would say there's 3 main roles to play. And if you look at this video here, there are 3 key roles that every business's mission needs to succeed. And if you go through that video, you're going to see step by step which one probably aligns most closely with how God has wired you, so you can continue to explore business's mission and your role in it. I'll see you over there.